Hey, good morning. Scott Luton here with you live once again on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. On this episode, we're excited to be interviewing Rocky Romanella, a proven supply chain leader and author of the recently published book, Tighten the Lugnuts, The Principles of Balanced Leadership. So stay tuned for a lively and enlightening discussion. On a quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a variety of channels, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, really wherever you get your podcast from. We'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Big thanks to all of our sponsors that allow us to bring these best practices and innovative ideas to you, our audience. Those include APICS Atlanta, The Effective Syndicate, ProPurchaser.com, TalentStream, and many more. You can check out each of our sponsors on the show notes of this episode. All right, so let's welcome in my fearless co-host here today, Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, chronic disruptor, trusted advisor, and hardcore Chiefs fan. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great, especially after last night. It's always good to stomp the guts out of the Raiders.
Big game, big weekend full of games, but we won't date the show, so we'll keep on driving there.
Yeah, that's right.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's great to be back in the studio.
Yes.
Not to date us, but we've been taking a little bit of holiday respite here.
You had about 182 family members, I think, come visit your abode, right?
6 trips to the Atlanta airport. That's 13 hours of driving.
Well, great to be back, and great to be back with what's going to be a home run guest.
Yeah.
Rocky comes highly recommended by several great friends of the show. So let's welcome in our featured guest today, Rocky Romanella, CEO and founder of 360 Management Services, former CEO of Unitech Global Services, and former president at UPS. Rocky, how you doing?
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me tell you what, that many trips to the airport, that's logistics.
That is logistics.
That's logistics,
no doubt.
man.
Let me tell you
what.
Yeah, some of it was really late order deliveries.
Oh,
just
wow.
Dad can't take them.
Yeah, well, that's if you look at the skill in logistics, the number one that no one ever really talks a lot about is flexibility.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes.
You got to be able to walk to that line of scrimmage and call it audible.
That's right.
Well, it'll be for long. It'll be drones, right? Drones back and forth at the airport, and
I can't
don't
picture
know.
Grandma hanging from a drone. I don't. Just saying.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
Grandma hanging from a drone is the way to go.
Yeah, I can't see that
You're
happening.
probably right. Yeah. FAA might not
They
approve
might
of
not.
that.
Yeah, appreciate
All right.
it like they should.
So if our audience can't tell, we're in for a very lively conversation here today. We're going to be picking Rocky's brain on a variety of insights, and from leadership to supply chain to logistics to M&A activity. So if your company is acquiring other organizations in the logistics space, which is very prevalent these days, you're going to hear some best practices from Rocky's background. So looking forward to that. But before we dive into all of that, Greg, let's get the latest from the Supply Chain Now Radio news desk. So what are you and Malcolm and the team up to these days?
Man, here's some interesting stuff that you need to know. So Dollar Tree, I'm sure that the Rite Aid executives and real estate team are thankful for Dollar Tree for picking up all of their empty stores. But not only is Dollar Tree taking over a lot of Rite Aid real estate, they have just hired a new executive to help them with something I don't think we talk enough about in supply chain, shrink, which is basically the goods exiting the store without going past the register. However that happens.
We're not talking a Seinfeld episode.
It could be theft. It could be loss. It could be store use and undocumented. It could be damaged packaging. It could be any number of things, any number of ways. But having come from retail myself, that was always a big issue, and you always had a target to keep it under 2%. And anyway, it must be a big issue for them. And so they've brought in a new SVP, Robert Oberosler, who was with Rite Aid prior to that, and he's going to take a look at Family Dollar and Dollar Tree, the two brands that this company manages. And it's a big issue in them, in their organization. Shrink increased 15 percentage points in the third quarter after jumping 45 points in the second quarter. So obviously they need to do something about it. This is not unique to dollar stores. It's not unique to Dollar Tree. It's common in retail. It's common also in distribution, right? I mean, if a forklift runs into a case of oil, those bottles or those units are shrink. Gary Philbin seems to be on the game here. But get this number here: the NRF did a study. Shrink in 2018 for retailers, $50.6 billion. So
Huge
obviously
bogey.
an issue that we need to tackle.
It's interesting. It's interesting though when you think about that and how much money is associated with that. And I know on the introduction when you talked about the show and you talk about you said people first, which is it really is about people. It's always people that are executing your brand. I'm thinking that here we have this shrink problem. But the first thing a company's going to do is send out a memo. Stop spending money. No more travel. Count every pencil. We're gonna get down to that to save money. Meanwhile, we got shrink over here.
Stuff's just disappearing
all
off
over
the
the place.
shelves.
Yeah. No one's on that right now. But you just drove someplace and you probably went the long way instead of using your GPS. We got to talk to you about your extra 10 miles. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so there are so many of those opportunities, whether it's from a health and safety point of view.
Yes.
The amount of money that's held, aside for your health and safety and your practices as well as the shrink. So it's amazing to me the opportunities that are out there besides the obvious efficiencies.
Well, that and the $50.6 billion, I wonder how that impacts the pricing that all of us
it definitely
pay on the
does.
products.
Every single penny of that is paid for by the consumer, and every penny of that comes off the bottom line of the retailer. And the issue with it is they don't know that it's lost until after they can do anything about it. So many retailers do an annual physical inventory, and that's when they discover it. That's when they discover they've got issues in their perpetual inventory system that keeps count of what's in the stores, and that's when they discover, you open 50 boxes of rubber gloves to work in the auto parts department, right?
So clearly, shrink is on the minds of many retailers. What else is on the minds of the news team at Supply Chain Now Radio?
Sorry.
Clearly, shrink's got them all choked up.
I'm
there's no doubt about this, man. I'm telling you.
I feel pretty strongly about the shrink thing. I am a little bit choked up. So this is interesting. So Amazon is trying to buy its way into other markets, and they have in India. They just bought a very small percentage of Future Retail in India, and that was approved by effectively the same as their Federal Trade Commission. So now they own a small portion of Future Retail along with a couple of other chains in India in order to try and expand their footprint outside of the U.S. and, of course, to combat the largest online retailer in the world, Alibaba. It's funny that we talk about Amazon so much like they're ubiquitous. They're not even second in terms of online retailers in the world.
That's a good point.
So it's an important thing for them to do. It's a relatively small stake. But knowing their strategy, and I've worked with them enough to know their strategy, it is land and expand. And like you're an M&A guy, Rocky, so you know how this works. You start with a small stake and you just continue to add additional stake in a company, or you use that as a leverage point to find an adjacent company to help you expand.
So these guys are like the show Christmas Carol, right? They're retailers past, They got rid of the Amazon, they got rid of the Woolworths and Sears of the world.
Right.
Now they're the retailers of present, but now they're going to the future retail.
Yeah,
so they're all three of the ghosts from the Christmas Carol.
Right, and that's a great market. I mean, look, it's inevitable that India and China will become the two leading, at least marketplaces, if not economies in the world. It's inevitable that China will become, just because of the size of their population. But so getting to those markets is really helpful, and it's a long range plan. Everything that Amazon does, they're looking 15, 20 years down the road. So.
Interesting. Okay, and then to wrap up the news items.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite. This has very little to do with supply chain, but it's It's a fascinating story. In the last week, two major. This is my Ocean's 11 moment. Two major thefts in Germany, both in the former East Germany, the former German Democratic Republic. One in Berlin at the Stasi Museum. The Stasi, if you're not familiar with, that's their secret police. They were disappearing and exiling and offing people during the communist, the socialist days of Germany. And some precious items were taken there. And that's just about 6 days after someone stole almost $1 billion worth of jewels in Dresden, which is in a section called Saxony of Germany, by starting a fire in an electrical plant. And
little diversion.
Yeah, and also it also cut off all the electricity, and then they busted in and stole about $1 billion worth of jewels. So obviously some security issues in Germany. I got to say, I studied Soviet politics in college, so I'm laughing a little bit that the Order of Karl Marx and the Order of Lenin were part of the things stolen. Not laughing so much at the 49-carat diamond that was stolen from the museum in Saxony, but clearly, and those I don't know what you know about the geography of Germany. Those cities are only about 2.5 hours apart, about 120 miles apart. So it could be the same group of people.
Wow!
So look for the movie soon.
Good stuff.
I don't know if that's a fun tidbit or what, but interesting anyway.
Well, exciting times in supply chain. Appreciate you and Malcolm and the whole team putting on that report together. So we've got a great guest here today, and if you can't already tell, he weighed in on several of the news stories. Rocky Romanella. So really looking forward to picking your brain. I really enjoyed the prep call or two we had. There's so many different directions we can take this interview in. But we've got, I think, a neat conversation kind of mapped out based on a lot of feedback we get on our shows from our audience and what their interests are and what they'll find helpful and interesting. But for starters, let's get to know you a little better. So where did you grow up, and tell us about your upbringing a little bit.
Well, thank you for asking. It's a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to speaking with your audience. And so the news was unbelievable. I mean, I was at the edge of my seat. Don't stop. What else do we got coming here, man? That's pretty good there, you know. So grew up in Jersey guy. My dad came from Italy, and I was born in Manhattan, but my dad said we're going to the country. So really early on, we moved to Jersey. So that was his first.
Which was the country?
Was the country for him in 1957, I guess. So, but grew up in Jersey and started working at UPS as a part-timer on loading trailers. My dad said one of my 4 kids is going to college. You're the oldest. He looked at me, but we got no money, so you got to figure this out. So UPS afforded me the opportunity to work my way through college.
Great.
I actually went to school to be a high school history teacher and a baseball coach.
Wow.
And then as I'm working my way through UPS as a part-timer, I'm realizing that the best supervisors and managers and leaders were those people who get their people to connect the dots. And so for me, I never gave up my teaching, coaching passion. I just did the coaching and teaching in a different classroom. And in a different field, it was just inside of business. And so I always felt like if you were going to be a good leader, you had to find a way to get your people to understand where you're going and you know how can they connect the dots and what role they play. And so graduated St. John's University, so a Red Storm.
Yeah, of course.
All my kids went to Seton Hall now, so we got a little competition going on right now.
How'd you let that happen?
Wow, yeah. So they all went to Seton Hall, and then Big East fan right now. But so it was a nice way for me to work my way through school. Became a driver in Plainfield, New Jersey, and UPS had a promotion from within policy, which I took advantage of. And then my dad told me 2 things that stuck with me throughout my whole career. The first thing is, so I'm getting the job at UPS, and a guy went to, one of the guys on the baseball team, Mike Coffey, got the job first, and then the rest of us all, it was like the whole high school class was there for a while. And then my dad told me 2 things. The first thing he told me was, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you. And then learn your job and learn some more. But the day you think you know everything is the day someone just passed you right by. So don't ever think you know everything. And those two things that he told me stuck with me throughout my life and career. And it really helped me as I was growing in UPS because, UPS would tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we got this new opportunity for you. And I may not have felt ready or I may not have had the confidence, but what I learned through that was, as a leader, you're going to have to believe in your people at times until they're ready to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you get that job, someone taps you on your shoulder. And I'm thinking, I remember when we purchased mailbox, et cetera, and they called me into Atlanta. Hey, we want you to, you're going to run this on behalf of UPS. And I'm looking at Jim Kelly was our CEO at the time. I'm like, you got to have somebody smarter than this. I mean, really? I'm the guy you think can do this, right? And he's like, Rock, you got this, and so.
But you're describing the beauty of volunteers that we need within organizations to do big and bold things. You have to have new volunteer leaders, right? They're willing to get out of their comfort zone.
I think that's the key, willing to get out of your comfort zone. And then I think as the leader, clearly they believed in me when I wasn't ready to believe in myself. Mm-hmm. And then, so as you're growing and developing in that job and someone's believing in you, you kind of get to that break-even point where your confidence, you feel good about yourself, and you're starting to think, well, maybe I can do this, right? Then you have that kind of break-even point. Then the next transition, I think, is what really defines a good leader, is the fact that now you step back. So, yeah, I was helping you. I was kind of believing in you until you're ready to believe in yourself. But now that you believe in yourself, I got to not overmanage it. I got to let you run now.
Yeah.
Now you don't need me behind you every 5 minutes asking questions. What you need is, you got this. I have complete confidence in you. Go, run, fly kind of idea. And so I think that to me was a great lesson that I saw, that I realized that, hey, as leaders, we've got to believe oftentimes we have to believe in our people until they're ready to believe in themselves, and you help them transition into that new role and new responsibility.
When do you think you reached that point? I'm just curious. When do you think you believed in yourself enough, that you didn't need your leaders believing in you?
I don't think I ever stopped that feeling that, because the biggest thing, so someone always asks me, like, what do you think your biggest strength is? My biggest strength is, I know the things I don't know, and I'm not afraid to ask for help. I mean, I don't feel that that's a sign of weakness. And so I think even as I was transitioning and took on my second district, so I was a district manager, so I kind of knew what my second district was going to be like, but it was a bigger district. So you always try to find those individuals that you can talk to. And, when I became a CEO, the chairman of the board at the time, Mike, was wonderful. And he said to me, look, I've got this individual for you. It's someone that, I think is a good person to be your mentor. You're going to need somebody to have those conversations with. And I think that I was always very open to that. So I don't know if I was ever 100% where I was like, you're not going too far now, all right? Okay, we got this.
Yeah.
But I think as time goes on, your confidence and the fact that you've done it before kind of helps you through that. But, I never wanted to embarrass myself or my family or let
too much.
Yeah, let people down. So I think I always start out a little bit hesitant. And then, I always like to believe that there's so much more for me to learn. So I don't think I ever got to that point where I ever thought I had it nailed.
I think that's an important lesson for our listeners, is you may never be comfortable with the next tier job when you get it.
Right.
You might not feel worthy, but I think part of the lesson is knowing that someone does have the confidence in you ought to give you at least enough confidence to give it a try. And if you, as you said, right, give it your best shot, and you keep that learning mentality, then you'll be successful at it.
Well, it's funny. There's a great book out there. I mean, I think there's so many great books out there to read, but to me, some of the best books you can read are children's books, right? So the books I read my kids when they were young, and there's one great book. It's called "Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus." Right. Okay. And so, of course, quickly the pigeon, the bus driver stops. Well, that's what the pigeon keeps saying. So the bus driver turns to the people on the bus and says, hey, don't let the pigeon drive the bus, right? So you got the bus driver, the people on the bus, then, of course, the pigeon shows up. Hey, I want to drive the bus. I need to drive the bus. I'm the best bus driver. And, of course, they can't let the pigeon drive the bus. And so, as I tell people all the time, on any one given day, you could be all three of those people. You could be the bus driver. You could be the people on the bus. As a CEO, people think you must be the bus driver.
Right.
Well, until you're talking to the share owners and the board, and now all of a sudden you're the pigeon. Hey, let me run the company. I got this. You got to help me out here, right? And then that moment after the investor call, you go from being the bus driver, you go to being the pigeon to the bus driver. Hey, this is what we're going to do. And then when you're sitting on the board as a member of the board, you're people on the bus. So on any one given day, you're all three of those individuals. And
whether you know it or not.
Whether you know it or not, and then understanding that and understanding what role and responsibility you have, I think is so important. And, I think that's the interesting part. Everybody thinks, oh, you're the CEO. You got to be, it's great for you. Or you're the, you're the pigeon. Or, look, there's no easy jobs in any company.
Yeah.
And so you have to respect everyone and every job that they're doing, because there are no easy jobs.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of that professional journey you've alluded to already a couple times during the interview thus far. From UPS through a very successful career at UPS, where your last role was president, right, of one of the markets, and then to CEO of Unitech Global Services, to what you're doing now. Kind of in a Reader's Digest in a nutshell, tell us about that journey.
Well, during my UPS tenure, and I know you've met many great UPSers, great company, great people. My UPS background's interesting in the sense that I did some of the non-traditional things at UPS. So, for example, we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, and then rebranded to the UPS store. That I had that as direct report, and so learned franchising, got a chance to meet some wonderful people. Truly, some of the, inside of a large organization, you believe you have a P&L responsibility. No one really understands P&L until you're a business owner.
Right.
And I have such great respect for small business owners, because if you think about it, a small business owner is all in. They take everything they own in life, slide it across the table, and they're all in. And at the end of the day, they hit the cash register, the drawer opens, they pay their people, they pay their vendors, and what's left in that cash register is what they bring home for their family.
Right.
That's all in. You can have P&L responsibilities inside a large organization, but that big elephant behind you is...
You got a backstop.
Yeah, right. So working with these franchisees taught me so much. Great respect for them, great respect for the network. And so I learned. And look, I've never really been an entrepreneur like them, and I don't assume that I could be until I've really done it. And great respect for the entrepreneurial spirit. And then we had over 20 acquisitions that we built. UPS Supply Chain Solutions today, which is today a global entity, and inside UPS, and then had this side the hemisphere for UPS, and then very proud of the fact that really helped build that the healthcare side of that piece of business. And so so those were all non-traditional things, and ran the Southeast and East Central region for UPS. I ran the traditional parts of UPS, and then retired, recruited to be a CEO of a telecom company. We built cell towers, upgraded cell towers, did the 3G to 4G, did some installations of cable and DirecTV, had a sale there. So while we were always on the buy side at UPS, integrating those companies, got the feeling of what it's like to be bought.
Outside the table.
Yeah, the other side of the table. And then retired from there, and then after the sale, and started this company, 360 Management Services, where we our three legs of our stool were keynote speaking, which I do, and then we have the training piece, and we have the process improvement piece. So I guess in hindsight, the thing I failed miserably at is retirement.
There's still time to change that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, every time I retire, I say to Debbie, what are we going to do? And she goes, you're not following me around ShopRite. So I figure out something to do here pretty quick. So,
working hard to be successful
yeah,
and employed, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So throughout all those experiences you just described, one of the things we were talking about before we went live was all the differentiation in the logistics space. I mean, to your point earlier, when you go to the EFT trade shows, which we're a big fan of that organization, which is now part of the Reuters
I just saw that.
organization.
Yeah, that's great.
Or any of the trade shows, industry association meetings, you see all the big players, the UPSs and many others, name brands. But speak to the differentiation in 2019 and beyond that you see being the important components of differentiation in the logistics space.
Well, I think the first thing that I think is something that I think everyone should pay attention to, and I don't say that in a preachy way, I just think that when you look at it, the demise of a supply chain company or a logistics company is being commoditized, getting down to complete price. And it's difficult, especially if you're that small, medium, operator, and you're sitting there and it gets down to price. And so I think the key to moving out of that commodity space is your ability to move from being an approved vendor for an organization to a trusted advisor. When you're an approved vendor, you're going to always get forced into that commodity side of pricing.
You're on the list.
Yeah, you're on the list. I'm
That's
approved
good.
vendor. Accounting is driving everything at that point. Yeah, we can use them because they're approved. But when you get to be that trusted advisor, think you're so much farther upstream. So, for example, I may have a client that I'm handling 2 or 3 lines of their products, and now they're going into a 4th line. Well, if they're calling me early in this process and asking and talking to me about the distribution channels, how they're going to go to market before they even go to market, well, now I'm a trusted advisor. I'm sitting at that conference table as if I'm part of that organization. If you can get to that point, now you're out of the commodity space. Now you're the trusted advisor. Now all of a sudden, there's value in your mind. There's value in your the things that you're talking to them about. they can't visualize not using you because they need you for more than just the movement of goods and services.
Yeah, you're not selling copy or paper. You're bringing an enhanced value as they solve problems so they can grow, right, and get better or deliver a better service.
Well, and I think the other thing you're doing is you're providing the ability to handle a complex problem, but still be a small business owner. Because they don't look at you as a small business owner any longer. They kind of look at, hey, you're my trusted advisor, you're my logistics consultant.
Right.
And so that, I think, kind of changes that, dynamic so that, because what's the big, if you think about it, what's the strength of a large organization? Well capitalized, they have a very large footprint, they have success, they have a brand name.
Less risk in doing business with these established brands.
What's the downside of a large organization? Well commoditized, they're well capitalized, big company, lots of people, less flexibility. You get lost. So if you can, as a small business owner, if you can portray yourself as that company that's flexible. I'm gonna help you grow and grow your business. I'm a partner. I'm a trusted advisor. But yet, I am well capitalized. I'm going to be in business for the long haul. I'm here for you. You kind of take the best of both worlds, and you're able to show that organization. Because if you think about it, you're handling the inventory of a company. That's the lifeblood of their company.
Yeah.
So that's their fear.
Yeah.
And in the end, you've got to humanize that relationship. Look, people didn't come to you to give you opportunity because you were that guy, right? They came to you because they knew that Rocky got stuff done. And it's the same when you have that trusted advisor relationship. It becomes very human.
It's interesting. The number one, the example I always think about, and one of the ones I'm the most proud of in today. I mean, obviously, the things that UPS does, and it's just amazing. It's just a great company because it's all about the people. And so I think about, so we get into the healthcare side of the business, and we're winning our first flagship customer, and we're sitting in Louisville, Kentucky, in this new, healthcare warehouse we just opened up, and they're our first customer, and I won't go through the name and stuff, but so he looks at me and he says to me, Gary says to me, Rocky, we're ready. We're just about ready to go. He said, but here's my concern. He said, my concern is that my 1,800 packages a day are going to get lost in your 14 million packages a day. And today, he looked at me and I said, Gary, I said that won't happen. And he said to me, well, how could you guarantee that? I said, because these aren't packages to us. These are patients. Now, today, that's the mantra inside UPS Healthcare is not a package, it's a patient.
Sure.
But I believe that so sincerely. And the way we executed that is as we started to onboard healthcare patients, we would take the 3-day or 2-day orientation of the healthcare company and actually give that to our people. And then we actually had we actually spoke with these companies and said, look, do you, for example, if it's a colostomy product or it's a diabetes pump or whatever that product was, do you have people that inside your organization that use those products, or do you have customers that use that product that would be willing to talk to our people? And we'd bring them in and they would address our people, because the goal was, how do I get a person to pick that product and have the face of the patient?
Yep.
Because if you think about it, 99.1% on time to CVS or Walgreens or Rite Aid, right, is a good number. But you don't want to be the one patient didn't get their product.
Right.
So you got to get that line of sight. So I think that's what's so important.
Yeah.
Well, and UPS is like many companies are ramping up their services in the healthcare space with UPS Premier, which made a big splash here not too long ago. Okay, so let's talk about. I want to go back to the UPS store because you kind of glazed over your neck deep role in the launch of that, or and I got to tell you, being in small business since 2013 with my own business, we have leaned heavily on the UPS store in Walton County. Big shout out to those groups over there. Incredible customer service, and we used to run training classes, so we owed all of our folks that completed the training certificates. So there were times when I'd take hundreds of packages to the UPS store, and they'd be, instead of making me fill everything out and spend 3 hours up there, just set it there, we got you covered. And as a small business person that values that time and can use those 2 hours somewhere else, I mean, it really they do home run work there. So tell us more about UPS purchasing and acquiring mailboxes, etc., and then how y'all rebranded that, Rocky.
So, by the way, you just described a trusted advisor. And that's
right.
the difference between a commodity where you're shopping what's my best shipping rates to the trusted advisor. So,
yeah.
When we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, at the time, the problem we had at UPS at that time was we were like, everybody got a package from UPS in those days, but nobody knew how to put a package into UPS. Right, so if you think about it, you got packages, but like, how does stuff get in there? It didn't make any sense to people, and so we didn't really have a lot of access channels. Our access channels were really the UPS customer counters in all of our facilities. So mailbox MBE was that access channel opportunity for us, but we quickly realized that the MBE/UPS store at the time was really a outstanding arm of our logistics piece of business, that it was going to be a great place for returns. It was going to be an alternate delivery location. It had the opportunity to be, and today we talk about it all the time there, so it really was the chance for small businesses to help other small businesses, and small businesses supporting other small businesses. And if you think about it, as a small business owner, that small business owner inside the UPS store was supporting you as a small business owner.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that we realized early on, too, was that the entrepreneurial spirit was magic.
Yeah.
And from that, I clearly realized early on that was the magic in it, and having independent business owners was really going to be such an important part of that network. So today, it's one of, and I don't know if this is exactly true or not, so don't quote me exactly, but it's probably one of the few franchise networks that's 100% franchisee owned. So there's no corporate-owned stores in the UPS store network. And that was my plan, because we knew that we wanted to capture the magic of the entrepreneurial spirit. Now today, McDonald's has X% of McDonald's that they own. And a lot of times you do that as corporate-owned stores because you want to test different products.
Right.
We felt like we had that relationship with the franchisees that they would be willing to do that. So then we were looking at it and said, well, what do we do from a branding point of view? And so we tested 3 brand scenarios. We tested MBE with sort of a UPS support.
Again, mailboxes, et cetera.
Yeah, MBE. Yep, I'm sorry. And then we tested a co-branded look.
Right.
And then we tested the UPS store brand. So we had these test markets running to decide what the ultimate brand would be. The MBE, kind of supported by UPS, if you look today, Hallmark has stores, and then they have what they call the Gold Crown. But nobody really knows what that means. So we were going to do something like that. We were going to have like a MBE with a gold shield and think that was it. But people were so confused. And what differentiates your MBE that's not one with another one? So that didn't really have the lift that we thought. And then we liked the co-branded look. We liked the MBE with the UPS store logo. The problem was, when you're in a shopping mall or you're in a strip mall, they're very strict on their marks. So some would allow you to have the MBE logo but not the UPS store UPS logo. You could have the UPS logo but not the. So then you were disadvantaging someone who depending on the requirements of the strip mall. And so the UPS store actually won in the test with the biggest lift.
Yep.
So we rebranded to the UPS store, and then that became what's today the UPS store network. Now they're over 5,000 stores today. We were close to 3,500 then.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So. And then the trick for us was we did something very unique at the time. We did not mandate the conversion. And so it's still today the largest rebranding of a franchise network in franchise history. And what we did is we went out and did road shows from January till about the middle of March and visited with all of the areas, all the franchisees. And then they voted, to become the UPS store. So it really was a remarkable undertaking in a short amount of time. You could liken it to a roadshow on an IPO kind of idea. The difference is you went out and visited all your store owners. So
love it.
Yeah, it was just a great group of people, and today it's just every time I drive by a store, it's just great pride, and there's such a great represenation of the UPS brand. Yeah. Absolutely.
And they're bought in, and that's not easy to do. So I had a friend who worked for Dunkin Donuts, and he was a franchise consultant, and that's what he was. He would try to get them to convert to the newest concept of store, which always resulted in an increase of sales, but it's hard to get a franchisee to invest in that because, as you told us earlier, they're taking their money out of the register to pay themselves, right?
Yeah, and it's scary, too. And the other thing is you bought an MBE at the time. Now, today, you know you're buying a UPS store, but in those days, you bought an MBE.
Right.
So now the question is, should I, shouldn't I? Am I advantage or disadvantage, And it's funny, a quick story. So I told you I'm from Jersey, right? So my cousin Joey's a great guy. He's a doc, though. Mm-hmm. So we're running these meetings all over the place. And so this guy goes in to see my cousin Joey, and my cousin says, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, I'm not feeling good. I'm under a lot of stress." And Joey goes, "What do you do?" He goes, "Oh, I own an MBE." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He looks at my cousin's name. He goes, "Wait a minute, Joe Roman, are you related to Rocky?" He goes, "Yes." My cousin goes, "He's the guy making me make this decision." So Joey's like, "Calm down."
Okay. I think I can help you with it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what he's talking. I'm not sure what's going on over there, but it's okay. It's a business decision. You shouldn't be hurting you. So it is interesting,
awesome.
Yeah.
Any cousin Vinny stories you can share with us?
Nah, come on, that's a stereotype. But I can go on for on and on. Yeah, we can go on for a while on those. Yeah, that's
one of our favorite movies of all time. All right, so let's talk about. We're going to move ahead. Before we talk about your book, I want to get you to tell us where you're spending your time here today.
Well, I live in Jersey now, and with the 360 Management Services, I do about 15 or 20 keynote speeches a year. I do a lot of breakout sessions. I enjoy the breakout sessions. For me, the breakouts and the training are the most fun because you're really seeing. I mean, I love keynotes are great. You meet wonderful people, but you really see the people connect the dots. The other thing on the keynotes that I like to do is for example, if you guys sign me up for a keynote speech, hypothetically, I did the dental labs keynote speech. So I said, I'll go out and visit 4 or 5 dental labs. I did the Association of Corrugated Box. So I went out and visited corrugated box people. So I enjoy that part of it because you get to see different people in different industries. And I never liked sitting at a keynote, in all the conferences that I attended. As an attendee, somebody rolls in with 45 minutes, does her, Willie Bag rolls in, does her speech, leaves.
Right.
I want to use my examples to be relevant to their industry. So for me, it's a lot of fun because I get a chance in this point in my life and career to meet different people, see different industries. And what I will tell you, what you come to find out, there's a common denominator of issues in almost every industry, whether it's dental labs, corrugated box, trucking, logistics, pick one. Aftermarket, products. It really comes down to people. It's your ability as a small business to retain and attract top talent. And how do you compete against the, Amazons and Googles of the world? And we talk about that all the time. There's a succession planning piece that large companies talk about. But think about it. If you're a third-generation company, what's your succession plan?
Right.
Is Junior going to run this thing or not? Does Junior want to run this thing or not? Kind of idea. And so I think that, those are, kind of issues that are not just reserved for large corporations. How do I retain and attract the best talent? Succession planning, the training and developing of our people inside our organization. But I think it's the same in small businesses. How do I retain the best talent, and how do I understand, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like?
So much there we could dive, but for the sake of time, we're going to keep driving because I'm really excited to get some questions out about this book that's been so well received. Tighten the Lugnuts, the principles of balanced leadership that you can get, our listeners can get in a variety of places, including Amazon. But Greg, I know you had some specific questions that we wanted to kind of pose to Rocky about.
I like the idea of you having a book because, as you described, you are more of a interactive type leader, whatever, idea sharer. I can see it, right? And I like the idea of you. I like the idea of you being able to interact with people. So I think that format is fantastic, and I agree with you. Sometimes those keynotes can be a little bit generic, but when you think about your book, what prompted you to share what you shared in there, and tell us a little bit about what you do share in the book, right? For those who haven't read it, but what prompted you to do that?
Well, it's really 2 kind of concepts. The first is this concept of legacy. So I believe the true evaluation of a person as a leader is what's their legacy. And for me, legacy is, do you leave things a little better than you found them? Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because of their interaction with your company? And so for me, the book just gave me a chance to sort of put down some of the great lessons I learned from other people, and maybe leave some of those lessons behind as sort of my legacy. Are people better, because they read the book, and do they feel better about themselves, or do they have a few aha moments? And so for me, I thought, that was sort of the theory behind it. And then I also think that, it's interesting, when you think about all of the opportunities you had, it gave me a chance to thank two very special people. With my dad, who was a big influence in my life growing up, and some great lessons there. I mean, we talked about two of them.
Yeah. Yes, and thank you.
And then whatever they asked, learn your job and learn some more. Well, the third one was, it's what you do when no one's watching that counts. And by the way, I'm sort of paraphrasing these. My brothers and my sister always laugh, because if you knew my dad, he wouldn't be articulating exactly like this. It'd be half of it would be in Italian probably, but and he said, if you think about that, and I remember saying to him when he said to me, "Oh, it's what you do when no one's watching, it counts." I'm like, "Dad, you just ruined it. Nobody was watching." I'm like, it's kind of like the best part of the whole thing, you know what I mean? And he looked at me and he said to me, I never forget, he said, there's always two people watching, the man upstairs and you looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. So I always felt like I had to look myself in the mirror every day and said, look, maybe I didn't make all the right decisions. Maybe I didn't, attain all the goals I wanted, but no one outworked me, and I did the best job I could every day, and that to me was so important. So we talk a lot about that in the book. And then my wife Debbie, who's been such a huge influence in my adult life, and I would say my greatest management lesson comes from Debbie Romanella. So I don't know if we have a minute I can share that with you. So we go out to dinner one night, you can imagine, nice Italian Catholic kid. So, of course, when you go to a Catholic church, you think you own the pew. If you're in the same pew every day. Yeah. Someone's in that pew on
Is that
Sunday.
only the Catholic church? I think we feel that everywhere else.
I know. It's like, wait, you're in my – like you walk in and like, who's in my spot?
Right,
like, what the heck's going on here, right?
Exactly.
Then, of course, you got to do the handshake a piece and so you do that. So we meet this new couple who's in somebody else's spot that day.
Oh, boy.
Tell you that, yeah. So we meet a couple, and long story short, Debbie's very friendly. And so we go out to dinner with them one night. And so we have four kids, two boys and two girls. And so she looks at Debbie and says to Debbie, "So who's your favorite?" So Debbie says, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Who's your favorite?" She goes, "I don't have any favorites. They're all my favorite." So the woman goes, "Come on, one of them has to be your favorite. Jean Marie, Nicole, Rocky, Andrew." She goes, "No, they're all my favorites." So now I kind of push back. Well, I want to hear how she answers this. So the woman goes, "How could that be?" And she goes, and this is the lesson that I thought was so insightful and so thoughtful. She said to her, "Because each of them gets what they need when they need it." Now think about that. Each of them gets what they need when they need it. So they all feel like they're the favorite. And from that moment forward, that's how I managed all my responsibilities. So if I had a staff and I had a seasoned controller, they didn't need me to overmanage them. What they needed me was let them go support me. And so they felt like their favorite because Rocky didn't bother me. Rocky let me do my job. If I had a new director of sales who needed me to help him or her close a deal, spend more time with them, go with them on a visit, well, then they felt special because, look, he's taking time out of his schedule to come with me and do that. So I think to me that was that thoughtful, insightful lesson that I got from Deb that basically was give your people, each person should get what they need when they need it. And if you manage that way, you're really you're gonna be the most effective manager or leader you can be, and everyone's gonna feel pretty good about themselves.
JIT management style is kind of what I want to hear. What you need when you need it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, so the book gave me the chance to recognize two very important people, and then as you guys can tell now, everything has a story. And then years ago, I was sitting at a meeting and somebody someone bring an idea, and I hated the feeling of saying, "Hey Scott, well, what if this?" And so Joe Scafone was created. I would say, "Hey, I think that's a good idea, but you think Joe Scafone thinks that's a good idea?" And so people were like, all right. So that was my way of challenging them in a positive way. Because I think one of the mistakes that supervisors make is, and managers and leaders, they stop at the first right answer. So how do I, in a positive way, have you move past that first right? Don't stop. Because if you go past that first right answer, you may find an answer that's deeper and wider. You may start to uncover unintended consequences. So my way of challenging you not to stop at the first right answer was to say, "Hey, I think it's a good idea, but you think Joe Scafone thinks it's a good idea?"
and we're going to talk more about this same Joe Scafone character in a second.
That is a really valuable lesson. Don't stop at the first right answer. Man, that is huge. I think you're right. People do that too often.
Well, because
it's rare that I have an aha moment like that here, but that's big.
But it's a right answer. That's why they stop.
Yeah.
But you have to find a positive way to push them past that first right answer.
It's kind of like an inverse of the 5 why, but rather than stopping at the first successful, you get the answer you're looking for.
Right.
You keep kind of continuing to validate that answer. And while, what I'm hearing at least, while uncovering the blind spot around that maybe you're not considering because you've gotten the the answer that we're all looking for, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned you're quite the storyteller, obviously.
Well, it depends if you like the stories.
Everything.
If you don't like the stories, it's a pain in the neck that don't stop talking.
Everything's a story. So I grew up in the Midwest, and I've always been convinced that my family is related to Mark Twain because everything we do is a story.
Birthday was just here recently.
Yeah. So you must get feedback from folks who've read the book. So of the stories or the the lessons in the book, what do you get the most feedback from?
The most feedback is that people will send me a nice email and basically say, I thought a lot about the book, but I realize now that I really did learn a lot from my parents because they have that aha moment that, my dad told me a lot of things too, or my mom told me a lot of things. So for me, that's the unexpected, really cool thing that happened with the book.
Yeah.
I think the thing that most people, though, from a kind of a leadership book, and I wrote the book because I think we're all leaders at one time or another. I think the mistake that people make is their concept of leadership is a title. It's not. I mean, we're all leaders, and I believe there's individual contributors who are leaders by the way they do their work, the way that people come and talk to them about different things. And so for me, from the practicality of why you wrote the book, it's the fact that people will stop and say, wow, I really understand that I am a leader, and I like the fact that you gave me different ways of looking at things. And, I'll give you a quick example. I mean, if we were in a keynote speech right now and there's 350 people sitting in the room, and I said to those individuals, who's your state senator? Who's your local representative? Most people couldn't answer that question. But if I asked the question, who's that teacher that made a difference in your life? Everybody stops. 5th grade, Mrs. So-and-so. 4th grade, Mr. So-and-so. Well, they're a leader then because they have a legacy. They left things a little better than they found them. And so that's what leadership's all about. And so I think people start to look at leadership differently. They don't look at it as, I'm the CEO, I'm Jack Welch, or I'm so-and-so.
Right.
No, I'm a leader because I influence people. I make things a little better than I found them. I'm a difference maker. And I can do it as an individual contributor or in a more traditional sense as a manager, supervisor, CEO, whatever that title you have. But we all lead, whether it's, on the PTA, the soccer team, whatever it is, we're leaders. And I think that, to me, has been the most rewarding part of the journey with the book, is that people look at themselves differently. And now they feel good about themselves. Well, wait a second. I mean, maybe I didn't retire as a CEO, but I'm making a difference at that frontline level as that sort of person who can help others and leave a positive impact.
So tighten the lug nuts, right? Clearly, this is about leadership. When you wrote the book, did you target it at leaders, or did you target it at people who ought to recognize that they
actually,
or both?
Well, both, but more the latter than the because I really think that I used to always believe that people, it's like small business owners. They say to me, well, how do I attract the best talent? The first thing you do is don't apologize for being a small business owner. Like, how many times they'll sit across from someone and they'll say, well, we're just a small business. No, that's your best attribute. People, people still love working for the person whose name's on the outside of the. I mean, you think Jeff Bezos is walking around Amazon warehouses talking to people? I mean, you can't be undercover boss because you're walking the floor. It's your company,
right?
And so, don't apologize for being a small business owner. That's your pride. That's what differentiates you. That's what's so exciting about working for that small business owner. And it's the same when I wrote the book. It's like all of us are out there making a difference. Maybe we don't have a title that goes with it, but we're making a difference, that we leave things a little better than we found them. And so the book was written in that format. Now, of course, the book title, Tighten the Lugnuts, is a chapter, and there's a story there. I'll let you read it and find it. But, in a nutshell, loose lug nuts cause a lot of problems. To me, a loose lug nut, I can tighten the lug nut quickly and effectively. But the minute I get sidetracked and I don't tighten the lug nuts, important things just go to urgent. And the mistake that people make is you can only handle so many urgent things.
Yep.
So don't allow important things to become urgent. Tighten the lug nuts. So now in the town, I'll address high school kids, and I'll go to some of the colleges. I do some stuff at Seton Hall. People say, "Hey, no loose lug nuts here, Mr. R. We got no loose lug nuts here."
That's good. I mean, you got to leave people with that kind of an
Yeah,
image,
yeah.
right? That's how people. That's how it sinks in.
Think about how many people will get behind on something. It's because someone sent them an email. It was a loose lug nut when they got the email. They don't tighten it. Now 2 days later, it stop everything.
Yep.
You gotta get some
Wheels
lug
are falling
nuts, pins, for
Yeah.
jackets and stuff.
Oh, that's
That'd
a
be
good
neat.
idea. Yeah.
All right,
I need a marketing guy. This is
Yeah,
good.
he's the guy.
Look
I'll
at
tell
you,
you.
man. I'll tell you what. It's very creative in this space.
Yeah.
I've got a good creativity vibe
Yeah,
here, man.
yeah.
This is good.
You're welcome
You
anytime.
make it easy. There's a good camaraderie here. All right, so again, Tighten Lug Nuts, Principles of Balanced Leadership. We'll include a link in our show notes where folks can find that book. But
Let's put a picture of it,
great
too.
read. Yeah, definitely. Great read. So let's talk more. You mentioned this Joe Scafone fella, and I've seen a couple video clips of kind of how you use that throughout your career, and it's really a simple concept but very powerful. So talk more about how you've used that in your time.
Well, as I said, it gave me the opportunity to challenge you in a positive way, not to stop at that first right answer and look past it. Because in some of the best plans, struggle with the unintended consequences. And so it's hard to see them all, and you'll never find them all, but if you push a person past that first right answer. And it's funny because people who know me, they'll come to a meeting, they would come to a meeting and they say, hey, I already covered this with Joe. Hey, Joe thinks it's a good idea. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good. That's good for Joe. And then I always, especially with new people for the first time they're meeting me, I'll introduce them to Joe, and they'll say, well, tell me a little bit about Joe, and do we have time for the Joe story?
Yes, please.
Please.
So Joe Scafone's this guy who says he knows everybody, right? So one day Joe's telling everybody, talking to some of his people, and one guy says to him, hey, man, you say you know everybody, but do you know Derek Jeter? He goes, oh, of course I know Derek Jeter. So I go to Yankee Stadium, and there's Derek Jeter. And he's on the field, and he looks up and goes, hey, Joe Scafone's here. So he walks over and starts talking to Joe. So my friend says, hey, that's pretty impressive. You know Derek Jeter. And then he's talking. He goes, hey, do you know the President of the United States? He goes, at that time it was Obama. He goes, you know Obama? Of course I do. So they go to Washington, D.C., and they're having this big press conference. Obama's like, he goes, hey, stop everything. Joe Scafone's here. Joe, come on up. And so Joe goes up. And so my friend goes, that's pretty impressive. You know the President, you know Derek Jeter. Do you know the Pope? I mean, not a lot of people know the Pope.
It's the ultimate test.
The ultimate test. Of course I know the Pope. So they fly to Rome. The Pope's having this big audience. And my friend goes, I don't think he recognized. He goes, look, I'm going to walk up there. If he recognized me, will you believe me? I know the Pope. He goes, sure. So sure enough, he walks up. The Pope turns around. Oh, Madonna me. Joe Scafone's here. And he gives him a big hug. Well, with that, there's a big commotion in the crowd, and my friend fainted. So Joe runs out and goes, what happened? What happened? He goes, look, I was impressed when you knew the Pope, but when the guy next to me said, who's that next to Joe Scafone? I couldn't believe it. So Joe Scafone's the man. I mean, he's everybody knows him. He talks to people, so he learns a lot. So Joe's the man. So we used to have a little bit of fun with Joe, and that sort of set the tempo that, we're going to work hard, we're going to have some fun, but we're going to challenge each other in a positive way to be the very best we can be. Yeah. And you learn from your mistakes. Make them, in small business, you're going to make a mistake. Make them small, make them fast, move on, And I think that's and if you can challenge yourself in a fun way, like with Joe Scafone or whatever your style is. I mean, everyone's going to have their own style, but what you're trying to do is to, in a positive way, reinforce, I appreciate you bringing that idea. Sounds like a good idea. Now, how do I challenge you not to stop that first right answer without making you feel like, wow, he doesn't think it's a good idea, or maybe he doesn't think it's going to work? No. I'm happy that you've come up with this idea. Let's see, how do we challenge ourselves to maybe look past that first right idea?
Yeah, love it.
Love that.
Yep. All right, so as we're kind of moving to the final segment of the interview here with Rocky Romanella, Rocky, we want to broaden things back out and get your take on, the trends or challenges or innovations or you name it that's on your radar more than others. But one of those I really want you to speak to, because it is a big trend in the logistics space, is all the M&A activity that's taking place. And as someone that's been there on both sides of the table as you have, in a nutshell, what's one or two things that, whether you're buying or selling in the logistics space, that you think folks need to have, front and center?
Well, I think the first thing is to have a strategy. Because if you think about it, I mean, I think we watch too many of these TV shows, Flip It or whatever it is, and buy them, and it's in the M&A.
Where it's like easy money.
In the M&A space. I mean, because the biggest thing I think that hurts an M&A deal. Look, the math side's always going to work out, right? Because in the sense of when you position the deal. Some pretty smart people sat around and figured out mathematically this should work. Now, the execution piece is what really kind of hinders an M&A deal really working. So, and it really comes down to people. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, you're doing a deal either for, an acquired talent that you don't have, a customer base that you don't have today, but you're hoping access to a market, skills, speed to market kind of idea. But if you think about it, it all centers around the people and your ability to understand the people. So I think you have to have a strategy. Why am I buying this piece of business, and does it fill out my portfolio? Or is it now starting something new that we haven't been in before, which is now going to drain the rest of the organization? I mean, think about, look, it's all over the news. I mean, think about AT&T buys DirecTV so that they can go upstream and acquire content. And now they're talking about a over $30 billion acquisition that they're not even sure they want anymore, and they're hoping that maybe Dish buys it. Mm-hmm. You listen to the investor calls and you think to yourself, like, what's going on here? I mean, so why did you buy it? What's your strategy? And if you're going to move upstream to go handle content, then you think about who you're competing against. You're competing against Disney and their content. You're Amazon Prime and the Amazon shows that you're buying there.
Right.
So it changes. So I think the first step in a good M&A strategy is, what is my strategy? What do I want to look like in the next 3 to 5 years? And what are the components that I need to build out that portfolio? And then obviously there's do I build or buy? And then I think if you're going to buy, then I think the understanding of the people side of it. I think that one of the real strengths of all the UPS acquisitions were the integration of the people that we worked so hard to make sure they felt like they were part of something special. Now it's impossible that everyone will feel that way, but people have to understand what you do stems from an honest heart. It was our goal that they felt good about it. And one of the things that you try to do is, not let them forget about where they came from. Like, I worked for, Menlo for 20 years, and now all of a sudden I'm getting integrated into UPS, and now I'm supposed to act like I never worked for Menlo? No, of course not. That's not right. That's not fair, or overnight pick at an acquisition. And I think what you want them to do is understand, where they came from, and how do I feel good about where I'm going, and how do I feel part of this new organization. And if you can do that, then you really start to get your acquisition. You get the people who start to feel good about, okay, I mean, I'm not happy that yesterday I was here and today I'm here. But how do you, how do you get, to your point before, how do you get those franchisees to feel proud about the fact that the brand now on the outside of their store is the UPS store versus what they purchased originally?
Right.
And I think it takes time. You got to work at it. But I think the people side sometimes gets lost in the integration or the acquisition because it's a math problem at first, and then there's a speed. Then you're filling out a portfolio that you think is so important. But there's so many large M&A acquisitions that you look back today and you think, I mean, now if you're a company the size of AT&T, you could probably handle the DirecTV thing not going the way you want. But can a small company do that? Probably not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I think. So I think have a good strategy, understand what you want to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think then how do you build it out? My quick example to you, though, would be besides the AT&T. So you led off with, the great news, and you talked about, Dollar Tree, Dollar Store, and all that stuff. Now think about this. I think it was at the 107-year anniversary. Don't quote me exactly. But, when they said to the CEO of Woolworths, why are you closing the 5 and dime? And he said, nobody wants 5 and dime anymore. Nobody buys 5 and dime. I don't know. Could you have another Dollar Tree or Dollar Store or Dollar General under 5? So it wasn't that nobody wanted a Woolworths. You lost your way.
Right.
Right. On the 107-year anniversary or thereabouts, when they said to the CEO at the time of Sears, why are you getting rid of the catalog? Oh, nobody buys on a catalog anymore. Well, can you get another Pottery Barn catalog in your mail or catalogs, right? And the other thing is, who's Sears and Roebuck today? Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean you could buy anything. Remember, you could buy anything out of a Sears and Roebuck catalog. You could buy anything on Amazon right now.
What a travesty. I continually go back to this, that the company who could ship you a house
Yeah.
by mail order, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people know that the Craftsman brand is because they shipped Craftsman houses to people, right? That they could not make the conversion from a catalog to the internet, which is essentially an online catalog.
Absolutely right.
Is an absolute travesty. And that is how many companies do lose their way. They don't see the market changing. The AT&T DirecTV is a great example of that. They didn't see Netflix coming. They didn't see Amazon coming. They didn't see the impending, in my opinion, death of traditional network television and the transition to streaming and other types of media. And they got caught kind of between. And they didn't know what to do.
Well, the other cautionary tale, I think, and this is just an editorial that may not necessarily represent the view of the station, but but if you think about it, and then everybody gets caught up in the frenzy of Me Too. So think about it for a second. You have Comcast, cable company, buys NBC. Then you got Verizon, right? Then goes and buys. They buy all the Huffington Post, they bought Yahoo, AOL, all that stuff, right? So they start to get in this Me Too. Oh, we're providers now. We have to go upstream. We have to own content. DirecTV gets bought by AT&T. So next thing you know is you're like, what's going on here? And they all start to, Disney, buys ABC, and at some point, ESPN. Then you start to wonder, like, do you start to lose your way a little bit? Do you start to, who are you? And I think companies have to answer three questions, and I think people do as well. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what won't I compromise?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you have to adapt.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, look, I don't know who was first, but I do remember that FedEx bought Kinko's, and around the same time.
No, it was actually the opposite. We bought MBE.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know who was first.
Yeah.
But it also comes down to not just having that vision, but executing well. And you talked about it. The people aspect of it is the best part of executing. Is the biggest part of executing well, because I don't even know if any of those FedEx Kinko's stores or whatever the heck they're called even exist anymore. But I know where all of the UPS stores are. I mean that aspect of M&A is really critical, and I think the thing that you've pointed out is that the aspect of M&A that really makes it successful has to be beyond strategy. It has to be in integrating the people and the processes that make the company work, and being flexible too.
Right. And what's the role that this acquisition plays in the overall kind of organization? And is it because I think what happens is that people get caught up in this concept of near neighbor. It's like, it's a near neighbor, so why don't we go do that? And if you think about it, next thing you know is they're not even in the neighborhood. They're not even in the same state anymore. It's like, how did we get over here from there? The other thing is it's a big distraction inside an organization, because what happens is people wonder, where am I going to fit into this whole thing? I mean, because if you think about it from a pure M&A side, you're going to go through the synergy side of it. So I don't need two of you. So who stays, who leaves? So and who are the people that leave? It's the best people. The best people leave when they're not quite sure, where do I fit, or how is this going to go? And so it's the ability to communicate, and it's the ability to give people a vision of what you're trying to accomplish. But it's hard to have a vision if you're not really quite sure why you bought the company, other than, hey, it was a good deal.
Those other guys did it.
Right. I mean, you could have an M&A show, flip or flop. Right. Just the way they have those ones on houses. Because, I mean, there's probably more that have flopped than really have been successful, because, and you think about companies. I mean, if 5 years or 10 years ago, whatever, we would have said, do you think anybody would have an AOL account? Nobody has an AOL account anymore. Like, how did that happen, right? You think about some of those companies, and you think, how did that company get to that spot so quickly, and then not have the ability to stay in that spot, you know?
The Me Too dynamic is alive and well. That's the first time I've heard that put from an M&A standpoint. So well put. Let's talk about you do, as you mentioned, a lot of different keynotes. In fact, the EFT event that was here in Atlanta in June, I think you're one of the keynotes where we first kind of were rubbing elbows. What currently, as you look out over the next 6 months, 12 months, what's on your schedule? What are you looking forward to the most from a keynote standpoint?
Well, I think what's exciting is the different, kind of venues I'm going to, but also the different organizations. And so just got signed for Napa Auto Parts. It's their global convention, so it's in Vegas, and that'll be a lot of fun because you're meeting people from around the world. I've noticed that I've been doing a lot with associations, and because I'm also willing to do breakout sessions. So what'll happen is I'll do the keynote, but then I'll do 1 or 2 breakout sessions. And in these associations, because they're I've done AFLING 2 years in a row, which is a wonderful organization. What happens is that they run these great, what they call kind of leaders, and they're trying to understand like who's going to take over these small organizations. And so it's been fun to, I'll go in a day early and I'll work with their emerging leaders group, and they'll, be 35, 40 people from 35, 40 different companies. And they've been identified as the potential emerging leader inside those organizations. And so it's fun to sit and talk to them and maybe build a 3 or 4 hour workshop for them on what are those key attributes of a good leader, the ability to communicate, the ability to have those difficult conversations, value and ethics and those kinds of things. And so that's been a lot of fun for me. So I enjoy that. I mean, I would say that, I do between 25, somewhere between 15 and 20 in that range. And the reason why it's not 40 or 50 is I enjoy going for more than the 45 minutes. So I like the day, and I'll be there for the day and a half kind of thing. So because of that, I'll tend to do one in a week versus some of the other keynote speakers. And there's some great ones out there. I mean, I'll listen to another keynote because you can learn something. So, I mean, the goal is in the keynote for me is to create that aha moment that people, can walk away, and 6 months from now, something comes up inside their organization. Like, oh, wait a second. We talked a little bit about this. Okay, this is a different way for me to look at it. So I think that's the fun for me.
Yeah,
love that.
I think being able to transition from that space on the stage to that intimate track, if you want to call it that's a real gift. I mean, not everyone can do that. I've seen some people who give keynotes, and often it's the same keynote with insert market dynamic quote here, right? Insert name of company putting on the show there, that kind of thing. And while it's really valuable, it's different. It's a different value to be able to sit down face to face with people and communicate that. That's great.
Well, and I think too, when especially when you're doing the associations, those are all small business owners that are in there, and so for them to be away from their business for 2 or 3 days, I mean, that's a big sacrifice for them. I mean, and so I think that's so I'm very, after spending so much time with the UPS store owners and knowing them as, entrepreneurs and business owners, you think to yourself, hey, if I'm going to get up there and give these people a keynote speak, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of their time as well. That, it's a great story, Rock. You told so good, we all laugh, but I mean, I'm away from my business. I need something to go back and improve things. And so I'm very conscious of the fact that, especially these small business owners in these association meetings, that's a huge sacrifice for them to be away from their business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well put.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So how can, as we wrap up here with Rocky Romanella, what's the best way that folks can reach out if they've heard something they've liked, they want to compare notes with you, they want to learn more about 360, you name it. What's the best way?
They want to meet Joe Scafone.
Hey, yes. Joe. Yeah, Joe. So we have my website is www. It's the number 3 and then the word 60, SIXTY, managementservices.com. So if you were my marketing manager originally, I never would have got a name 360 Management Services. So it's like you got to spell it, check it 3 or 4 times, But when you go online you start a business, that's taken. And the 360 comes from our consulting side, where we look at things from a holistic point of view. It's like the complete circle. It's kind of like the circle of life, kind of idea, where it's not just one part of the business, it's the whole. And so that's where 360 comes from. But 360managementservices.com, very interactive website. I answer the questions myself. So if you send in, I'll get people contact me. And so there, my email is Rocky, ROCKY, Romanella, ROMANELLA @gmail.com. Feel free to email me, not a problem at all. The book is on Amazon. They do a great job fulfilling. I get a lot of requests, interestingly enough. I didn't realize that people have such great value or enjoy books that are signed by authors. So I'll get a request for signed books, and they'll email me, and I'll work out with them. And I did one of 45 people. They gave their books to all the people in their organization. So I said, all right, send me the name of all 45 people. So I wrote something personal. I like to personalize the books because, nothing just to drive you crazy. You get a signed book and it's like some guy's signature who you couldn't tell who it was anyway.
Yeah, right.
I was like, this guy must have wanted to be a doctor, and now he's unfortunately writing a book, so he's got to write like a doctor, though. But so anyway, so I'll sign books, and so you can interact with me on the website. We'll work out the arrangements. But if that, I think that. I think that's pretty cool that people would want to give that book to someone. That to me is like the ultimate, kind of, okay, it's a good book, and, I want to give this as a Christmas gift or a holiday gift or whatever. So I think that's been a lot of fun as well. And then the last thing is, so on my website, if any of you are fans of legendary coach John Wooden. So I'm a big Wooden fan. And in 2000, I spent 4 hours with Coach Wooden in his condo.
Wow.
And so on my website is the interview, the 1 hour interview with me and Coach Wooden. If you go to Coach's Corner, you'll see the Coach Wooden interview. And I love Coach Wooden, gentleman, and he was great. I mean, that could be another segment, my hour with Coach Wooden and the stories we talked about that day. But Coach Wooden, though, so you have all these keynote speakers, right? And so I said to Coach Wooden that day, I said, Coach, what would you like for your fee? Because what happened was I was going to a UPS, I was going to the UPS Yearly Management Conference for the senior leaders, and I was with a small group that was putting together a presentation of leaders and leadership and operational excellence. And so I had seen Wooden, I was in Southern California at the time with UPS. And that was the other thing. I moved like 9 times at UPS. So picture Rocky Romanella living in Des Moines, Iowa.
Ooh. Hey.
First, you know what the number one question I got asked?
What?
Are you in a witness protection program?
Really? No. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
No, I could see that in Phoenix.
No, in Des Moines, people are like, how did you get here? Right? And then one time I met a man, I go like, hey, this is nothing personal, it's business. I saw that movie. What's going on here? So, no, we moved across the country. Great. I love living in Iowa. We love Des Moines. It was a great place to live. Met some of the finest people in my UPS career. But so I was living in Southern California at the time, and so I said, I just saw Coach Wooden speak at then it was called the Arrowhead Pond. And so they said, well, good luck. So I literally called the athletic department at UCLA and said, look, I saw Coach Wooden speak. I have this opportunity to be part of a presentation inside my company. You think Coach Wooden would be willing to talk to me? He said, well, look, I think he would. Here's his phone number. So I said, okay. He's well retired at this point. So, and the guy says to me, he's assistant athletic director. He goes, look, before you call him, send him a next day or send him a letter, tell him what you want to do, and then then call him about a week later. It's going to go into his voicemail. It's going to go into his answer machine, and then he'll call you back. So sure enough, send a nice letter. It's what we're looking to do. I'd like to talk with you for a little bit. Here's the topic. Kind of like what you run the show kind of idea. Send it to him, wait about a week, call him up. Sure enough, goes in his, answer machine. And then Coach Wooden, Rocky Romanella, I sent you this email, packet. Can you please give me a call back? So about a week and a half goes by, and I haven't heard anything. So that, of course, and at UPS, like, hey, we got about a month before the show. You got to have to, if you don't hear from Coach Wooden, we're going to have to go in a different direction. So I call one more time. It's like I said, Coach Wooden, Rocky Romanella. Now he has the pyramid of success, right? So,
right.
So I said, Coach Wooden, it's Rocky Romanella. I got all the hard work, enthusiasm. I'm going through the pyramid. I said, but Coach, I got 4 kids. I really need your help. So I hang up, right? About an hour later, I'm in the car. My daughter calls me, Jimmy. She goes, Dad, some old guy called you. Coach Wooden? I pull over. Whoa, I stop right there. I call him back. Hey, Coach Wooden. Rocky Romanella. He goes, I know, you need my help. I said, yeah, could you help me? He goes, yeah, what are you doing next week? I said, whatever you want me to do. He goes, all right, can you come to the condo in Westwood? I said, sure. So I go to the condo with the recording crew, and we spent 4 hours together in this condo. And he used to call me Mr. Brown. He goes, hey, Mr. Brown's here. Come on. So then the driver would say, hey, Coach Wooden says hello to you. Great, just a gentleman. And so we spent 4 hours. So the 1 hour video of that. But to wrap
That's
it up,
on your site.
Coach on the Coach's Court, you'll see the video.
Okay.
But so I said to him, so Coach, whatever your fee is. He looked at me. He goes, fee? He said, you asked me to help you. I'm not looking for a fee. I said, no, Coach, really. If there's anything you want, he said, I'll tell you what. Would you be willing to donate $5,000 to the Jimmy V Foundation? I said, Coach, we'll do more than that. And so from that, that touched me so much that he would. I mean, look, here he is, like the winningest coach at that time, college, men's side basketball. And now it's of course a guy in Connecticut who's the winningest coach. But it's unbelievable. And he said, no, just send money to the Jimmy V Foundation. So in 2019, for every book sold of Tighten the Lugnuts, we donated $1 to the Jimmy V Foundation.
Wow.
And of course, the legendary speech he gave, "Don't give up," and it just touched me that Coach Wooden, was so humble in his approach, and the first thing he could think of was, hey, can we donate to the V Foundation and in Jimmy V's memory, and I'd love for you to be able to do that. And so whenever I can, and all of us have been touched, unfortunately, with someone in our family who's has struggled with cancer, either passed with cancer. And so I think, to me, it's just a good cause. It's kind of a way of giving back. So in 2019, for every book sold. So
order fast is what you're saying.
I want to write a big check to the Jimmy V Foundation. I really do. So, but Coach Wynn was great. So that's the other thing. You'll love the interview was great. And you'll see. I mean, he's sitting there. I mean, it's in his house. He's just sitting there talking to me, and we're going back and forth.
Wow. We should put a link to that. We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And for your book. So do they have to buy a particular place for you to get
No. What happens is because I'm self-published, I get a monthly, of all the books sold, and then I just, whether it's Amazon or Barnes & Noble, iBook, or Kindle, and then I'll see all the total sales, and then I'll just send a check to the Jimmy V.
I hear you've got videotape, too, of Coach Wooden teaching you how to slam dunk a basketball.
That
video, too, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a video. If you find that one, let me know. That's for sure. So,
well, what a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. We're just really scratching the surface of the iceberg with an hour and some change with you, Rocky. Would love to have you come back. To our listeners, check out the book. We'll include a couple links that we've talked about through the podcast episode here today. But Rocky Romanella, CEO and founder of 360 Management Services, former CEO of Unitech Global Services, and former president of UPS. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you, guys. It's my pleasure. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rocky.
All right. So, as always, we're going to wrap up lightning round with some of our upcoming events. But, Greg, what a great way to kick things back off after the holiday.
No kidding.
We've got an aggressive schedule coming up. And, Rocky, you give us you bring passion and energy.
It's energy.
You can feel it. I think on the front end of the interview, you were talking about kind of how Rocky communicates on a different level, and you can kind of see how you like to get involved, and that is it gets your juices going.
Yep.
You know what I mean? All right, so let's talk about some of the events we're going to be at. The CSCMP Atlanta Roundtable, January 15th, where we're going to be talking NASTRAC. You ever heard of NASTRAC, the organization?
Yes.
One of their leaders are coming out, Greg, and they're going to be talking about how some of the regulations that came to pass in 2019, what it means for your transportation business.
Yeah. Atlanta, CSCMP.org. Right?
That's right. Open to the public.
Yep. And then in Vegas, baby, Reverse Logistics Association, the last Italian-American that we insulted was is Tony Sciarrotta, the founder or the leader of that organization. Great guy, by the way. I mean, this cat worked at Phillips. And I love his approach to reverse logistics. Anyway, we won't go into that detail. But
been there, done it.
In Vegas, Vegas, February 4th to 6th, RLA.org.
That's right.
Right? And
broadcasting throughout broadcasting throughout the 3 days there. Looking forward to a slew of interviews from the board members to some of the keynotes and many others. And then
Modex, the big
March.
Modex show, 35,000 of our closest friends on March 9th to the 12th. We're broadcasting throughout, or streaming, we should probably call it streaming, whatever, throughout that entire show. Also, tied to that is the Atlanta Supply Chain Awards.
Oh.
So on the 10th, Tuesday, from 10:30 to 1:30, the 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards. Christian Fisher, President and CEO of Georgia Pacific. I think he knows Joe Scafone.
Yeah.
He's going to be our keynote for that. And then Shan Cooper is going to be our MC. I don't know if you've ever met Shan, but interesting and delightful speaker.
Yes.
So
outstanding supply chain background.
Yeah.
Led Lockheed Martin here, senior executive, and then went on to be Chief Transformation Officer at WestRock.
Oh, wow.
And so to get Christian and Shan 1-2 punch at the 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards on March 10th. We're really excited about that. And
so modexshow.com. conta.cc.com.
And
right?
it's free to
Right.
attend. 35,000.
That's why
people.
they get 35,000 people.
Yeah. It's a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah, man.
Let me tell you.
That's right.
And if you want something besides peanut butter and jelly, you go to AtlantaSupplyChainAwards.com.
That's right.
Sign up and get yourself a good meal. Probably chicken or fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Final event, AME Atlanta 2020 Lean Summit, May 4th through the 7th. We'll be there on the front end of that event. And that's, if you're not familiar with AME, it's the Association for Manufacturing Excellence. They've got members across the country. They all gather here, focused on lean methodologies, lean best practices, you name it, here in Atlanta. And we'll be there on the front end of that on May 4th. AME.org is the link. And, of course, on all of these, we'll include the links to learn more about each of these events on the show notes as well. Okay, big thanks once again.
Yeah.
Rocky Romanella, CEO and founder of 360 Management Services. Really appreciate your time. Author of Tighten the Lugnuts, right? Principles of Balanced Leadership. That's really important. We kind of glaze over that balance, but that balanced approach is so important for effective, successful leadership these days. We'll include the link for where you can find the book. And that is going to be a wrap. Greg, what did we miss today?
I can't imagine what we missed. There were no accidents outside the window while we were doing this, so that's good.
That's a good sign, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day.
Good day, great conversation. Thanks again, Rocky. To our audience, be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. Find us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever else you find your podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire team here, Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and we will see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.